Hi everyone, I hope this finds you well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending where you are in the world and when you get to watch this. So as always, a real pleasure to kind of connect with you all. So we've got a fantastic question, this time from a lady called Crystal from the Netherlands. Crystal goes on to say, can you do a video about emptying your mind? So then you can listen to the silence to see if there's anyone there, see if you can hear someone talking, and is it safe to do that? Okay, there's a couple of things I really want to kind of express and kind of pick up on and also practically show you. So I'm going to cut a few videos today, but I want to kind of explore this and then practically show you some techniques, show you some approaches to this based on my experience. Okay, so it's just based on my experience and what I understand from the innate and from spirit and the work that I do. So emptying your mind, first and foremost, okay, that is not easy. Okay, first and foremost, no, it's not easy. The amount of times I hear people say to me, do you know what, Shane, I've tried meditation, but it doesn't work. I've tried meditation several times, they say, and it doesn't work, it's not for me. Okay, and that is a normal response that I hear week in, week out, day in, day out. And I understand that, I get that. You know, in my early years of working in the way that I do, I greatly understood the importance of kind of stilling the mind. Importantly, changing state. Okay, so this is the important piece of information here. Importantly, I begin to understand the importance of changing state. So moving from the everyday, the conscious mind, the chatter, the thoughts that we all experience and we all hear, and then beginning to change state into a daydreaming, kind of almost that space where you kind of drop into where you're daydreaming, that space where you're staring out of a window, or that similar space where you're driving and then you kind of suddenly say to yourself, oh my word, I've just arrived at work. I do not remember going through the traffic lights. I do not remember going through the roundabout. Or you're walking up to this train station and suddenly you arrive there. And you're like, oh, I'm here already. That space where you're having a conversation with someone and you drift off. Okay? What we're talking about here is an altered state. It's a similar state that you drop into almost when you kind of drop off to sleep, or it's a similar state to what you kind of drop into if you're under hypnosis. It's an altered state of consciousness. That's what we're talking about. And you know, I knew the importance of it because it's within that kind of altered state, or that daydreaming, conscious, subconscious state that you drop into, that you begin to receive information. You begin to sense the innate. You begin to become aware of spirit. And it's a similar state, I'm very sure, and I spoke to my dad first picked up on this, who is a therapist and has practiced for many years the shamanic path and followed the shamanic path. And he used to say about fishermen, you know, when they're sitting there and they're just watching their float. They're sitting there under their bivvy and they're just sitting there and they're watching their float. And you know, you talk to fishermen and they say, you know, one of the things I love about it is just being outside, just kind of, you know, leaving all your worries behind. What they're talking about is they're entering a daydream state, watching the float. It's a form of meditation. It's a similar space that you fall into or drop into under hypnosis. Okay, so know that to achieve that, it's almost as if, because like I said to you, people say, I've tried meditation and it doesn't work. It's not something that meditation first and foremost, not something you achieve overnight. It's the unraveling of the mind. It's allowing yourself to just kind of drop from all that kind of chatter and almost just step back from it. So don't try so hard, I also come to recognize that actually, meditation for me seemed, like a chore. It seemed like extremely hard work. It seemed like I was having to force it. Whereas when I started to drop into that kind of daydream state, it's a form of meditation and it's a meditative state, but it kind of naturally occurred. And that's what we're after, is the natural occurrence, not having to try to kind of force it. And then I kind of recognized, talking with people, that people just naturally drop into that. They arrive at work suddenly and they don't remember getting there. They're taking a train journey and they're staring out the window and suddenly they come back to the space. You're sitting there and you're doing some work on a computer and you drift off and then suddenly you come back because the phone rings. It's kind of allowing yourself to just kind of drop naturally into that space. And I think with meditation, where many of us go wrong is that we try and we force it. And I feel that there's a couple kind of keys for me that have worked over time. I often say that cycling is my meditation. Miles on my meditation. The other thing I've kind of noticed is that the more we kind of drop into being very present, the more we drop into the here and now, the more all that kind of noise and all that kind of clutter, all those kind of thoughts and all those kind of worries begin to dissolve, so it's a dissolving. And for me, a couple of things that have really helped is cycling, which is you got a sense of movement there, but yet what it does is it kind of drops you into your body and takes your awareness from the mind. Okay, it's like when we give this attention, or we give those thoughts that are just kind of moving at speed attention, it's almost like we feed them. So what I really want to say is about emptying your mind comes over time. It comes with practice. So those of you saying I've tried meditation, it doesn't work, is sometimes it is the trying that is the problem. What we want to do is just allow. So almost like you want to say to yourself, well, I'm going to sit quietly for 20 minutes. And when you first do that, your mind is going to completely, totally resist that process. Without a shadow of a doubt, it's going to throw up immense amount of resistance. This is a waste of time. Why am I doing this? This doesn't work. I should be getting on with other things. What about that phone call? What about that email? What about I've got to get here? Oh my God, where's that? I can't remember where I've left that. 101 things will be thrown at you. Because the mind's resisting the silence, it's resisting the stillness. I think the more that we gently place ourselves into stillness and quiet, the more comfortable we become with it. It's a bit like, many of you know I do a huge amount of adventuring, and I place myself quite often in environments that are, on my own. And there's an immense amount of solitude to that, and I'm very comfortable with the solitude. But did that happen day one? No, it didn't. All those years ago when I walked through the mountains of Scotland, I got into those mountains and then kind of woke up one day and almost like freaked out. Oh my God, here I am completely alone in the middle of nowhere, and it scared the life out of me because the excitement carried me so far in, and then my mind woke up and it was like, oh my God, what am I doing? I had nowhere to run. I could only but face myself. So it's about becoming comfortable with the quiet and stillness. Your mind will resist it, so it's about dissolving it. So it's about consistency. So the more you kind of drop into that meditative state, the more easy it becomes. But the key is not to try. It's about allowing. Meditation, in fact, is not trying, it's allowing, and allowing the mind to unravel, which takes time. So I encourage people, to start with 3 times a week for 20 minutes to start with. Set an alarm, not too loud, so that you're not going to clock watch, because you naturally, another form of resistance is time. Is it done yet? Defeating the object, so you want to just kind of put an alarm on your phone or alarm, set it for 20 minutes nice and quietly, bring you back and just allow yourself. The other very important is breath. Breath is the key to bringing yourself back to the present. I cut a video recently, I will put a link within this video, talking about the chakra system. So I was talking about the chakra system, and kind of coming from a deeper place within inside of you, which is like your core, and the same with kind of that meditative state. That's what we're talking about, is with the breath, is you're kind of breathing nice and deeply and dropping deep down inside. So imagine it as a well. The deeper you drop, the quieter it becomes, the stiller it becomes. So taking nice deep, what I call deep cleansing breaths, will bring you back to self. If you start bringing yourself back to self, you also start to drop into the here and now, and you'll start to naturally drop into that meditative state. So there's a couple of things I'm now going to practically apply with you to see how it sits, see how it fits for you. And remember, it's about working with these techniques. They're not going to happen immediately, they're not going to happen overnight, but it's about working with these techniques and becoming consistent till you naturally have them anchored. So now I don't do any kind of form of conscious meditation. I like to sit quietly before I consult. I like to sit quietly at the end of the day when I finish consulting, and whilst I'm working in between it, there's a sense of, not quiet, but there's a sense of kind of, I'm moving through that consciously and calmly, and with the way that I work, I'm very aware of the environment around me, because then I can spot those subtle changes within the environment. Someone's come into the environment energetically, and then I'm aware of who that is, and in the information that they bring, because all information is information. But it becomes more natural. These days, miles are my meditation. When I'm out adventuring, that is a form of meditation. I'm also dropping into the interconnected fabric of everything. I'm not separate from it, so I'm becoming more at one with it. I'm becoming more at one with myself, actually, and that's what all of this is about. So one of the first things that I kind of discovered was actually through learning some very simple techniques that are connected with Qigong, is that to kind of really become aware of self, we need to become aware of the body as well. And sometimes, moving through life, we kind of move at speed. As a good friend of mine says, we move through time, whereas we want to drop into time. But sometimes we just absorb a lot of heavy energy as well. So what I would really encourage you guys to do is almost stand up, to start with your kind of practice with some of these techniques. It's almost stand up, become aware of self, Gently, I'm going to do it sitting down so I can film this for you, but gently kind of close your eyes and take a nice deep cleansing breath. Place your hand on your heart. A hand on your solar plexus. And breathe. And now let's consciously take 7 deep cleansing breaths. Two. 3. 4. 5. 6. And 7. And gently start to bring yourself back, very gently back to the room. Just notice how different you feel. Notice what you're feeling and how different you feel. Be interested in hearing how you felt as you come out of that, so drop some comments in the video below, and any questions. But for me, I feel a lot calmer. I feel incredibly still. I feel very quiet, and I become super aware of the environment around me. So for me now, I'd be able to spot what's in the background, what's in the subtleties. I'd be able to spot any differences within the environment. So if spirit were there, I'd begin to be able to spot who, what, and almost the emotion, the mood of what's in the environment. So as spirit come into the environment, I'm also looking at what approach they're taking. What is their emotion, what is their mood, what is their feeling, because for me that's all information. I was only working yesterday and I sat down with somebody, and as spirit come in, there was a feeling of dread. Now that was information. That was because the person I was consulting for actually was in a very, very traumatic situation, and they were about to kind of throw themselves even into greater trauma. So the feeling of dread was important. So when I turned to this person and said, I got this feeling of you stepping into something, but it gives me this feeling of dread, they knew exactly what I was talking about. But what was really important was spirit were in a way trying to intervene to kind of get them to move around that situation, not to throw themselves completely into the deep end. The wording and the energy and the emotion was vitally important, but only how we can spot that is by having a good, strong, solid sense of self, so that we can discern the difference and the contrast. Something I've shared often. So once again, nice deep cleansing breath. What that breath does is bring you back to self, brings you into the moment, brings you into the body, calms and quiets the mind. The question I have for all of you is, do we breathe properly nowadays? I think we've forgotten how to breathe. One of the things I say to people when they're going through a lot of trauma or a lot of transition, a lot of change, or there's a lot of pain, or there's a lot of grief, is I say to them, breathe. We need to remember how to breathe, because the breath also brings us back to self, but also allows to let go. I'm going to gently leave that with you. As we go forwards, I'm going to join this video up with another, some practical ways of kind of stimulating the energy system within the body, how to kind of shake it all up, and then how to kind of dissolve some of that heavy energy as well. I hope you've enjoyed that. Like I say, I'll be interested to hear your comments. Please feel free to drop them below. Those of you that are watching this on YouTube, you can go and find my daily content on my Facebook page, which is Spirit Meets Adventure. Also my website, which is allthews.shanegad.com, and those of you that are watching this on Facebook, you can find a whole wealth of resources on my YouTube channel if you search in YouTube for Shane Gad. Thanks guys, see you all soon, bye.